Hello, my name is Thomas Wagner, and in this presentation I will be speaking about learning and memory in the invasive ant Linepithema humile, also called the Argentine ant. Linepithema humile spread from Argentina to most continents where it forms interconnected supercolonies. They are, of course, a tremendous ecological threat in invaded ecosystems. Unfortunately, insecticide spraying is not too effective because the queen is usually pretty well sheltered. Another big problem is that ants often don't consume enough poisoned baits because there is better natural food available. One way of increasing bait consumption might be teach ants to like baits, but to do so we need to know if these ants can learn. So our main research questions were: do Argentine ants form short and long-term memories, and if so, what cues do they learn best? To test if and how fast Argentine ants can form short-term memories, we started with a side learning experiment. We led ants onto a Y-maze with a sugar reward on one arm and punishment a drop of bitter quinine on the other arm. An ant enters the Y-maze and chooses a side, and only ants which first discovered the quinine and afterwards the sucrose were tested. As the ant drinks, she gets of course marked and then returns back to the nest to unload the sucrose. She then is allowed to enter the Y-maze 4 more times, and we of course recorded her decision every time. We found out that already after the first visit, after they found the food, ants have formed a strong association between a site and the sucrose reward. This of course increases even more with more visits they had. We then began exploring odour learning. In these experiments, an ant is allowed onto a scented runway, for example a strawberry, with a sucrose drop at the end. She drinks, is marked and returns to the nest. While in the nest, we replace the bridge with a differently scented bridge, for example apple, and with a drop of quinine at the end. After experiencing this, the ants are then tested on a Y-maze in which one arm is scented in strawberry and one in apple. And we found out that indeed ants were able to form a strong association between an odor and the food reward. Then we wondered if we can improve learning by adding flavor to the sucrose drop, and yes, the combination of odor and flavor results in an even stronger learning. Surprisingly, removing the quinine as negative stimulus did not make learning worse. Apparently, negative reinforcement is not needed, as we can see here. Finally, we decided to remove the runway odor and gave them only flavored food, but this was not sufficient for them to form a robust memory anymore. Finally, we wanted to ask how long these memories lasted. The experiment was identically to the ones before, except that this time the marked ants are housed in a small box with 60 nestmates. After 6, 24 and 48 hours, the trained ants were tested on a Y-maze, as before. We found out that even after 48 hours, ants showed us extremely strong preference of the trained odor. We also realized that food information might be spreading amongst the nestmates. We therefore also tested the untrained nestmates, and indeed, even they showed a preference for the reward odor. Of course, this means that maybe the ants are not remembering for 48 hours, but are actually retesting the food from the sisters through prophylaxis and so on. So to control for this, we repeated the same experiment without the flavor and in the sugar. Just a bridge with odor, and still, as you can see, trained ants were able to remember that reward odor leads to sucrose. But the untrained nestmates showed no preference for the reward odor anymore, which makes sense because they never got fed with flavored food, so could not be exposed to the smell. So what have we learned? Argentine ants are amazing learners. They form memories extremely quickly, which can last at least up to 48 hours. We also found out that nestmates' preference can be steered by flavored food fed to them by their nestmates. So, thank you for listening to my talk.